Okay, hello everyone. So today we have John Dündar here with us, and he is a journalist from Turkey who wrote the graphic novel Eragon. And today Kumru will be interviewing him, and then after that he will be answering our questions. So yeah, Kumru.
Thank you, Stella. Thanks a lot. So this is really a very pleasant moment, regardless of the circumstances that uh, we have the chance to talk with John. We decided to make this in the form of an interview, and then once we are done, then like Professor Dege said, this is going to be open to your questions. And your questions were already wonderful. So please make sure that you come up here and ask your questions. Hey, John, can you hear
Hey,
me?
Kumru.
Hey.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so good to see you. So wonderful to see you.
Good.
So, I mean, I would love to introduce you, but I think you should introduce yourself. That will be so much better. And, you know, his interviewing skills are so much better than my interviewing skills. So
Come on.
why don't you introduce yourself first and then we go on from there.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, really thank you so much for your invitation. I'm very proud to be there. I wish I could be there in person. Um, but Kumru, first of all, to you and the Pratt Institute, thank you for inviting me for this. And it's a huge opportunity for me to meet with my readers there. Um, yeah, it's difficult for a journalist to give interviews instead of, normally I used to make interviews. So it's a bit strange situation, but of course I'm here as a writer today. So I've been working as a journalist for almost 40 years now.
That's how
Um,
long I know you, right? Maybe a little bit longer than that.
More or less. Yeah, more or less. Exactly. So I started at the end of 70s and still I'm a committed
Hold
journalist.
on. John, just stop for a second. I think something is going on. There's a cable problem.
Yeah.
I didn't touch anything here. John, can you speak, please?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Better
Yes, yes,
with this
thank you.
cable? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, so you have been a journalist for 40 years. That was the last thing we heard, yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Well, I started with some magazines, then jumped into the newspapers, worked as reporter or foreign correspondent, etc. Then I started as a TV guy. Then I was working as an anchorman for some news channels. Then I have become the editor-in-chief of a newspaper, the oldest one in Turkey, called Cumhuriyet, 100 years old newspaper, a kind of prestigious one, left-wing newspaper. And then my life has completely changed after that.
So, okay, let's move on to that. How your life changed. Why are you in Berlin right now?
Well, not for political, not for touristic reasons, but more political reasons. Well, I can summarize it for you. We published a story back in 2015 in our newspaper. It was about it was a video, in fact. We found a video. There were rumors about Turkish government and Turkish intelligence had been transferring arms to Syria, to the Islamist jihadists in Syria, and sending them weapons, arms, even jihadists to fight against the Kurds or the government forces. Those claims were denied by the government at that time, and they said we were only sending medical help to Syria. And we found a video showing that there were trucks full of arms, and they were heading to Syria at that time, and they were stopped by the gendarmerie at the somewhere very close to the borderline. And at the other side of the Syrian border was Al-Nusra, a kind of Al-Qaeda type Islamic organization. So it was obviously and apparently showing that Turkish government was providing arms to the jihadists in Syria. Of course, the government didn't like it, and Erdoğan, back then the president, he said it's an espionage act, even if the video was true, and he said it was a state secret and it shouldn't have been revealed. Then they seized the paper, and but it was already published, and there was a huge reaction by the society. In the beginning, he said in a live coverage TV show, he said the journalists who make this story will pay a heavy price for it. And I've been paying for this price for the last 9 years now. He put me in jail. I mean, not himself, but the judges. They asked 2 life sentences for a news story. 2 life sentences in a Turkish jail. That means, I mean, you have to finish this life and you have to come back again to finish the second one. But thanks God, the Constitutional Court was not under his control at that time, and they found my imprisonment as unlawful, and I was released after 3 months of imprisonment in a solitary confinement. But a small detail maybe, in between, while I was in prison, Joe Biden, then the vice president, was in Turkey, and he invited my wife and my son, and he talked to them, and he said to my son that he should be proud of himself with his father, a brave guy, whatever, and he made it public. And then in 3 weeks I was out. So because he did this gesture just before meeting with Erdoğan, so it was really important at that time, showing that U.S. government was not approving that kind of insult against the journalists. So I was out, but I mean, then didn't finish, unfortunately, because the case was going on. And in the last day of the hearings, during the last hearings before the final verdict, I was attacked by a gunman in front of the courthouse. It was the most protected area in Istanbul, but a gunman was kind of allowed to get in and try to kill me. Shot twice, but thanks God, my wife was brave enough to.
Yeah, his wife saved him.
Exactly. Yeah, she was brave enough to jump on the attacker, and my wife saved my life, let's say. I survived, but then I got 27 years of imprisonment because of this story. So then in fact, I didn't escape from the country. I was out when a military coup attempt has happened. I was in Spain in a holiday. Then my name was again at the top of the journalists to be arrested. Then my lawyers told me that it would be better to spend some time in Europe. And since then, I've been living in Berlin in exile for the last 7 years.
Okay, so that's why you're in Berlin, and you said Biden was actually kind of key asking the release of or being proud of this journalist, but this is kind of a parallel story. Why were you in London last week? Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, to follow a similar story with Julian Assange. In fact, I was there to observe the hearings of him, of his extradition process. There were two hearings in a row, and the two judges of the British judicial system, now they have to decide whether he will be extradited to US or not. It's a very critical situation, and there are many similarities. Maybe you already observed that between the two cases. In fact, this a disturbing video for the intelligence services, for Turkish and American intelligence services, and the same kind of reaction by the two governments, US and Turkish governments, a kind of insult by the politicians, by media, to discredit us, and same kind of incarceration in solitary confinement. But to be honest, I should admit that his conditions are worse than mine. I saw a replica of his solitary cell. It's really worse than the ones in Turkey. Surprising to see this. I went to the prison. He is now in Belmarsh prison together with his wife. The conditions are really horrible there. And the judicial system is like more or less the same kind of, even if in Turkey we cannot talk about rule of law, but what I observed in England is that the establishment, together with the government, the media, the judges, and the whole aristocracy, the political aristocracy, is trying to kick him out to US, and they are kind of supporting the government's approach to get rid of him and find a solution to this crisis. And imagine, he's been in jail for 5 years now, and before then he was in the Ecuadorian embassy for 7 years. And this guy has been paying the price of showing the war crimes of the US government. And it's really tragic. And I guess there's no still a good ending for him. Either he stay in England, he will be in solitary confinement, waiting for the appeal, or he will be sending to US, where he will be in solitary confinement again, and he may be facing something like 175 years imprisonment.
3 lifetimes.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your sense? Do you think you think that he will be sent to US? Is that your sense about that?
To be honest, hard to say. It's more political, I guess, more political decision whether how much British government can resist the force of the US government. We should be aware that his health is not so good, and he cannot attend the last hearings. And he already declared that in case of a decision of extradition, he won't be going to US alive. So he would commit suicide. So it's really very hard decision for the judges, for the politicians in England, because knowing that he would die in prison in the US. So it's a very, very hard decision, and they will give this decision in a couple of days now. So it will determine the future of investigative journalism, because now they are setting the boundaries of our profession. If he will be, if he dies in prison like Navalny in Russia, it will be a shame for all Western democracies. And at the same time, it would be a message to the other journalists that if you touch that kind of sensitive issues, that would be the end waiting for you.
John, thank you very much for informing us about Julian Assange too. So we have this first-hand information from you. Thanks a lot. So let's come back to your book then, which almost all of us in the room have read it. And so I mean, students have lots of really brilliant questions, but can you just talk us about how you started writing this and how many languages it has been translated to, its reception, and how and why you started writing it, and is there going to be a second one too? So, yeah.
Thank you. Sure. Can you hear me, or can you hear me now?
Yeah. They said yes. I don't know. Can you see them? I don't know if you see them.
No, I cannot. No.
Say yes, everybody.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, it all started with, in fact, when I came to Germany, people start asking me questions about Erdoğan and the regime in Turkey. So I was giving interviews, writing articles, etc. Then I decided to, make him more visible via this book. And I started working on a biography. But during that time, as I mentioned in the book, I was in Strasbourg visiting a bookstore, and I saw a biography section, lots of graphic novels about many leaders. And I thought Erdoğan, as one of the biggest leaders of our age, deserved such a book, a graphic novel. And I said, yeah, why not? Let's make it as a graphic novel, because there were many books written about him as biographies. Even some of them are kind of official biographies. And I thought it would be a good decision to try something new, a graphic journalism, they called. Try to explain what you want to say in a different way, in which the young generation can, easily read. So this is one reason why I have chosen graphic novel as a method. Another is, it's more dramatic. It's a kind of a mixture of documentary and drama in a very modern way. And another reason is, in our office, there was a very talented graphic cartoonist from Egypt, and coming from a similar background, fighting against the Islamists and the army in Egypt, and knowing a lot about Islam, about autocracy. And he's a very talented artist, and we found each other in Berlin and decided to work together. And this is the fruit of this cooperation.
Okay. All right then. Actually, the way I found out about this book was I was in Italy, and on the shelves I saw the Italian version of the book.
Yeah.
And I was like, John, what's going on? And then and then he told me, oh yeah, it's also in Spanish and also in French. He was very nonchalant about that, except the fact that the book does not exist in Turkey, even though there's a Turkish version in
right.
Germany, but in Turkey the book does not exist. I tried to smuggle some during Christmas break, but I couldn't because of some mailing issues. But I will continue. I will do it. I will do it. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, the book already is something like 7, 8 languages already. I mean, last month it was in Greece with the Greek version. So I'm so happy that I can, explain Erdoğan in a Greek for the Greek friends. So hopefully I'll be visiting Greece very soon to give a talk there. And in France especially, I mean, France is the center for graphic novels, and there were really good, very good press coverage about the book. But unfortunately, as you said, I couldn't reach my own audience in Turkey, my own readers. But we found a way. Last New Year, we were planning to give a kind of a present to our readers, because I have a media outlet in Berlin. I found 7 years ago. It's called Özgürüz. We are free. So as a present, we decided to give the book for free. And we decided to make it available as a PDF to everyone who sent us an email, and all of a sudden, in a week or two, it was 30,000 people downloaded the whole book.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay.
And yeah, it was a kind of a guerrilla war of a writer who's banned in his own country. And it worked, you know, so no one can stop you if you are decided to reach your audience in that age.
That's brilliant. So that's the Turkish version, right?
The Turkish version is already in Turkey as a downloadable PDF copy.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Excellent. Okay, John, now we really want our students to ask you questions now. So this is how I'm going to do it. One from violence as politics class, one from your narrative class. So that's how I'm going to do that. And they have really great questions. We love their questions. So who would like to come here and ask questions?
Scared a bit now.
Yeah. And but before that, I mean, as students are just thinking of coming up here, John, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, you asked me about the second volume. Yeah. We start working on it. I mean, the book is, as you know, ended with he coming to power, but the whole story starts after this, as you all know. You know, in power for the last a quarter ago, he came to power. And imagine, my son haven't seen any other leader at the age of 27 now. So that's why it's important to show how he behaved in power. That's why we are working on it. Hopefully next year it will be out. But the problem is we don't know the end of the book yet.
Darn. Yeah. There you go. But many students mentioned, and when they read the book, they mentioned Persepolis, so which is a 3-volume. So they all thought like it's very similar to that. But with Persepolis, the first volume is really good. Not the others really that much. But in this case, I think the second volume is going to be even more interesting than the first one.
I hope so too. Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. So, any questions? I know you have questions, so. Yes, you have to come up here, unfortunately, that's how.
In the introduction to Erdoğan, you stress the importance of telling events as they happened, regardless of whether or not they garner sympathy. Sorry. All right. In the introduction to Erdoğan, you stress the importance of telling events as they happened, regardless of whether or not they garner sympathy for a rather unsympathetic person. Why do you think this approach is essential, specifically telling the story of world leaders who abuse power and engage in corruption? Do you believe showing us sympathetic aspects of their life further enriches our understanding of their unsympathetic aspects? Do you believe it's the ethically correct thing to do when narrating history, or a little of both?
Thank you. Why don't you stay? Maybe if he wants to clarify something. Actually, many people in my class too, they were like, is he rooting for Erdoğan? Like they were also like asking this kind of question, but this is a great way of phrasing it. So John, did you get the question or?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, this is the main topic of this talk, right? I mean, you found a brilliant title for the talk. I guess it was writing a book about someone who ruined your life, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, more or less the same problem. Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, imagine you are writing a book about a leader who put you in jail, send you in exile, and order a gunman to kill you even. Because I'm working on this shooting the attacker's story now, and hopefully it will be another book with the background of this assassination attempt. So of course it is very difficult. I mean, he is not a sympathetic leader, as you mentioned, but I asked my wife to read the book in the first place, you know, before anyone else, and she wrote the book read the book, and she said, I feel pity for him. And imagine, I mean, we are in Berlin, we lost everything, our country, all of our assets, we are away from our families, so in exile for nobody knows for how long, and all of a sudden you feel pity about the guy who put you in this position. This is exactly what I wanted, because I mean, I read a lot about, for example, Adolf Hitler or other leaders like Putin, Lukashenko, and the others. So there are stories behind them. There are reasons why they have become as the leaders they are today. And I guess we need to learn those reasons. What kind of reasons create their political status today, and how they become a kind of dictators, autocrats. Knowing that would, give us the opportunity to prevent the next ones. And to understand them, we have to understand them to fight against them. And we have to find the motivations. We have to find the social reasons behind those rising power issue. And it's not only personal, it's political, it's sociological, psychological, economical reasons. So to understand a leader, we have to cover all those issues as well. So if you feel pity, okay, I mean, his father was torturing him while his childhood. So I cannot hide this. I have to mention that so that maybe the other fathers can refrain torturing their sons, that they can be a dictator in the future. So those facts, so I'm not an Erdoğan opponent, I'm a journalist. So first, so a journalist should stick to the facts, not to the feelings, That's why it was important for me to, go for the facts, not for the feelings.
Thank you. That was a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Who would like to ask a question? Come on, guys. We know that you're focused. Yeah. Can I stand up first and then you? Yeah. Okay. Now we have a line.
Hello.
Hi.
We talked a lot about kind of going off of what Paolo just mentioned, but a lot of the times in the book, he kind of had these thought bubbles where you could read what he was thinking. And I guess I was just curious how comfortable, I mean, because it's a biography, so you have to stick to the facts, but like there is no like real certain way to know what he was truly thinking. So I guess we were kind of wondering how comfortable you felt sort of putting these thought bubbles and like driving the story forward with like information that is technically impossible to like confirm if you actually thought that.
Great question. Thank you so much. That was a problem from the beginning, of course. I mean, we are not creating a documentary. It was like, as you know, it's a graphic novel. So it's partly novel in the form of a documentary. So of course we have to fact check everything. We had to fact check everything. We had to get into all the details of his life, and we searched a lot. I mean, it took 2 years for us to, work on his biography. We read every book written about him. We went to the archives, the papers, personal biographies, friends' memories, everything we checked. So I tried to put myself in the shoes of him and start thinking, trying to copy his method of thinking, let's say. And then I had to be fair and objective. Of course, you cannot be neutral in such a subject. And I think nobody is neutral in life. But you can be objective. So I pushed hard to myself to be objective as possible, ethical, accurate. But those bubbles, of course, important. But as mostly I trust the sources, And also I trust my senses about his feelings. And when you worked a lot on someone's life, you can easily get into his brain and try to start understanding his words and his approach and his wording even. So then I use those kind of talent to get into his brain and speak in with his own words.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. My question kind of...
Can you speak up, please?
Sure. My question kind of adds on to the previous two questions. I greatly admire your quest for journalistic integrity. On page 12 of the graphic novel, you said you have to be concerned with what happened, not with the response it might elicit. I am curious as to whether or not you think documented history can be 100% objective, and whether or not you think subjectivity diminishes the credibility of journalism and the documentation of history.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I try to be objective and as objective as possible. Objective, ethical, accurate, and fair. So not so subjective. Because really, I mean, Erdoğan wants to create a kind of polarization within the society. So it's a track. So he wants us to hate him. He wants to spread the hatred. And this is a kind of a trap for all of us. And I really don't want to get into this trap. And I want to, stay as objective as a journalist. There's a famous quotation by a Bosnian leader, Alija Izetbegovic. I love it. He says, war is lost not when you die, but when you look like your enemy. So I don't want to look like my enemy, I want to stay as I am. So if he hates me, I cannot hate him. I try to understand him. So being objective can diminish and damage your work, of course. I had enough reasons to be subjective and to write something diminishing his portrayal in Europe, for example. But it wouldn't add any value to my book. On the contrary, I mean, many people wrote in many countries that they admire the objectivity of the book. That's important because Erdoğan will die, I will die, but the book will stay. And if people think that it's an objective book, then it will go forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, this reminds me of one North African author. He said, Erdoğan is now a historical figure, but we are the ones who are documenting that history. So
great. Yeah.
thank you for doing that. Okay, yes, there's another question.
Hello.
Hello.
So I wanted to ask obviously there's been a lot of discussion about objectivity, and those who've read the book, we know that it is an objective thing, but kind of farther away from that, because the title of this is writing a book on someone who ruined your life. Like,
no, that's the title of the talk.
Yes, no, that's what I meant. That's what I know. But how does that feel almost? It's kind of an abstract question, but not in the struggle to be objective, because I think as a journalist, that is your job. It's what you know. But with all those years of research, did you find it kind of just hard emotionally or mentally, kind of straining?
It was, yeah, of course, it was hard. But imagine, I mean, every article, every book is a kind of a series of eliminations. So you eliminate the material you collected. This elimination is part of the job, but of course part of the political culture and part of your historical background. So you eliminate the parts which are not useful for you, for your personal history. And every biography has this problem. So you have a million, you read million article and you collected millions of material about someone you're working on. And of course you have to eliminate. So if you start eliminating the parts you like, and you can easily create a devil out of your subject. But if you are asking for kind of searching for a fair book, if you want to write an objective book, then you don't have to eliminate the issues you don't like. So that's a kind of balancing system while you're writing. You have two angels over your shoulders, and one of them is saying that, hey, don't take this because it would help him to be shown as sympathetic. And the other one is, hey, come on, you're a journalist, just put it in. Then this fight determines the book, the content of the book. And I guess in this fight, I feel like more fair today when I read the book, when it finishes. I feel, okay, I guess it's fair enough. I'm doing the same thing for the second volume now. That's why, I mean, this fight between the two is still going on. I wonder if I can give you an answer.
Just a follow-up question. Was there anybody people who received the book who were almost critical or a little upset that it was so objective? Because there are people who do not subscribe to the idea of, looking like your enemy is, how you've lost. There are people who take much more aggressive actions. Like, was there any backlash on that front?
Of course, yeah, of course, many people were waiting for a kind of a fighter, written by a fighter, a kind of a discreditation of Erdoğan, and showing him. Look, I mean, you cannot judge someone with some prejudice, so you shouldn't. So when he, for example, in the second volume we are working on now, he tried to find a peaceful solution to the Kurdish problem, and he was the first in decades tried this, and we supported him in this regard. And in one stage he tried to create a kind of a rapprochement between Armenia and Turkey. It was a taboo subject, and of course we supported him in that sense. So in some cases, of course, I mean, when he did something right, according to us, you cannot say that, hey, I'm against this guy, and so I have to be a kind of an opponent in that sense as well. No, I mean, this is not the politics works, how the politics works. So that's why in some cases, of course, I supported him. And in this book, I tried to understand the motivation behind his aggression, for example, or his hate or his anger. So if we can find the reasons, we can heal them. Otherwise, I mean, we are just the opponent, an ordinary opponent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And then
the book excludes some details of Erdogan's family life and focuses on others, like how his kids want him to come back home more. That's just one I was thinking of. How did you approach balancing personal moments and political moments in his story?
Oh, yeah, this was one of the big difficulties of the book, because It's not a transparent family. So it was very difficult to get into details of his personal family life. And we tried to reach some personal memories, friends, books, or his interviews about his family, etc. So everything you read is fact-checked, double-checked, and true about his family life, but not enough. I mean, unfortunately, of course. In the beginning, I thought about it. Should I make it more, kind of a drama that I can, easily write about his personal life, or should I stick to the reality as far as we know? So then I decided to go for the facts, even if it won't be enough, as you already mentioned. So unfortunately, these parts are not so powerful. But imagine, I mean, his son killed a singer in a traffic accident, and they covered it up. So I mean, this fact is more important than his, pillow talk with his wife, I guess. So I mentioned I, really focused on the facts in that sense.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I was just wondering if you think that there was like an exact turning point for Erdoğan. Huh?
Speak up, speak up.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
think that there was
please.
like an exact turning point for Erdoğan into authoritarianism, or if you think it was more gradual? And if there was like a turning point, like what you think that moment was?
Such a great question.
Great questions, by the way. Thank you. I guess I'm just trying to find out the page. Was it 50? Something like 50. Yeah, I mean, if you have the book, there's a moment back in 69, there was a bombing in the association he just be a member of it, and then one of the students were killed in this bombing, died there, and I guess that was an important turning point for him, because one of his friends were killed in this accident. Killed or died, we don't know yet, but I mean, this changed radically, I guess, his political approach, because I mean, it's important to lose a friend, of course, for everyone. And for Erdogan, it was a political fight at that time. He was quite young. But this page is, when you ask me what you learned about him during this research, I can summarize it on one page, this page 50. After his funeral, there was a picture showing him in the cemetery together with the others. This picture showed me a lot about him, told me a lot about him, because in the picture you can see something like 7, 8 people. Imagine we are talking about 69, and then 50 years later, all of them has become his ministers. So that showed a kind of a strategy, 4 decades long strategy. He, made them ministers in his cabinet. I mean, from the youth, they were together. So that told us a lot about, our strategy. I have never experienced something with my friends, I haven't seen anyone who kept this friendship for 5 decades and, brought them to power together with him or something her. So that's why that showed how their friendship turned into a political kind of an elite in Turkish politics. And that's why it's really important to mention this long time strategy. And you will see the same thing in the second volume. Thank you.
Yes, please. And then, no, first,
I guess my question is a little bit more of an opinion question. I am from Russia, so I relate to your son's experience of seeing the same face for 20 years in politics.
Of course.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, once, you know, that line has been crossed of an authoritarian leader where they cut down any sort of opposition before it has an opportunity to sprout, and people either have to like be exiled from the country or put in prisons for life or die, like as we've seen in the recent news. What do you think, how do you come out of that situation? Because at this point it feels almost like it's like a personality cult. And so it seems like the only thing you can do is just wait, but that's also really like maybe a sad way to look at it. And then the odds of things getting better once, you know, like what are the odds that isn't going to be another person put in the same position for another like 20, 50 years? So yeah, I guess mine is just like more of like an opinion, like what do you think the future in these countries is, and like what are maybe like some strategies that can be used? I don't know.
Difficult. Well, I would say that Putin and Erdoğan has very similar characteristics and personalities. They like each other, they hate each other, but they copy and paste each other. So I'm sure when Erdoğan heard about Navalny, he thought that, hey, good idea, just poison the opponents in jail. So on the other hand, we should understand that their policies are not only depending on their personal characteristics, more about the political climate that they have been living in. So in the book, you may realize that when Erdoğan was ready to take over the power, the Americans helped him a lot. Because at that time, not only in Turkey, but in general, all over the world, there was a tendency to stop communism rising. And the Americans, late 70s, early 80s, realized that from Greece on, there's a huge Islamic world starts. And then they decided to use it for their interest. And they thought it would be good to, help the Islamists to stop the Russians invading Afghanistan and, getting more power in the region. So they supported the Islamists like Al-Qaeda or others. Then they really, they transferred arms, money, etc., everything. And they created this political Islam in the region. And at that time, Erdoğan was ready to take over. And Americans thought that, okay, this guy is usable. He's a kind of soft Islamist and stick to the American interests and against the Russians. Why not using them? And after the military coup back in 1980 in Turkey, even the soldiers were supporting this Green Belt project of the US. And while they were putting all the communists in jail, they were supporting, giving opportunity to the Islamists. And the political Islam, together with Erdoğan, is a creator of this political climate at that time. And they partly prevent communism coming to power, but at the same time, they created this devil of political Islam, and now they are trying to get rid of them, or trying to, stop them more radicalizing. In that sense, I can only say that it's again depend on the political climate waiting for us, and I cannot see at the moment any kind of a immediate solution to this. On the contrary, this is the world of autocrats at the moment, and with the growing power of the autocrats all over, I cannot see a kind of a political solution, immediate solution for democrats all over the world.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So in the book, you focus on a lot of the political turmoil that happens in Turkey during Erdogan's childhood. And I wanted to ask do you think the political turmoil that occurred during those time allowed Erdogan to rise to power and stay in power aside from his oppression of opposition? Do you think that kind of aided in his rise and control for as many years as he's been?
Another great question. Thank you for asking this. I guess that's true. I mean, we all rise in this turmoil, and Kumru and I are products of those years of turmoil. So we learned a lot, we suffered a lot, but I mean, we lost a lot of friends during that time. But for example, 1968 movement all over the world, especially in the US, was a kind of a radical democratic movement, especially in Europe and US. But in countries like Turkey, yeah, there were some kind of a democratic resistance at that time, but we missed the point that there were also a 68 movement in the Islamist and conservative circles, and they were preparing for future at that time while we are fighting against American invasions all over the world, etc. So they have become the winners of this game. And unfortunately, 68 movements was crashed in Turkey with a military coup. But then the winners was the conservatives and the radical Islamists and the nationalists, fascists. So of course, we learned a lot. And Erdoğan is creator of this, also this turmoil, this political turmoil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you and that Maxi. Thank you. John, you can let us know when you're really tired.
You are the
Hi.
boss.
First of all, thank you for the talk. It has been very interesting.
Thank you.
Originally, I wanted to ask a different question, but I guess during the talk, a different question sort of came to mind. I come from a country which is neighboring to Turkey called Georgia, and I have many Turkish friends, most of them my age. And something that I've noticed in Turkish politics is that Erdoğan, he has been losing a lot of popularity in the Turkish public. And the last elections in Turkey, many people were convinced that he was actually going to lose the elections because he came head to head with the other opponent. And there were some talks of fraudulent elections, and people were very angry. In Turkish politics, there is this sort of theme of opposition between the old generation and the younger generation and their different approaches to Erdogan's political stance. How do you think that this political battle is going to progress over time? Or do you have any hopes sort of like for the future?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm one of the people you mentioned that are hopeful, that were hopeful about the results of the last elections. Even we were preparing our luggages to go back to Turkey after the election because it was, as you mentioned, kind of head-to-head, and we were so sure that the opposition, the alliance and the opposition could win, but we failed. Then I realized something, that we were hopeful for to see six parties came together against the autocracy for the first time in Turkey's history. But we, I guess, forgot something very important. The question is it possible to win an election in an autocracy while the autocrat has control over the media, the government, the parliament, the media, the judiciary, the education system, the finance system, controlling the budget. So how come a democratic alliance win an election under these circumstances? So we have to find a solution to this, not only in Turkey, but all over the world. That's that issue makes it impossible to win an election in an autocracy. Changing the conditions is almost impossible under such political climate, because I mean you cannot use the media, you cannot I mean imagine that one of the most important party leaders has been in jail for 7 years now, the Kurdish party leader. So you can easily put your rivals in jail, or start an investigation against them, or make them invisible in the media, etc. So that's why, okay, if you cannot change the country via elections, then what? I mean, Turkey tried uprising during Gezi Park protests back in 2013, didn't work. Erdoğan smashed them with a police force, and the army tried a kind of a military coup back in 2016, didn't work. He smashed this military coup attempt as well, and he got bigger and more powerful. So if not with revolt or military coup or elections, then how? So it's the question for many countries around Turkey in the Middle East, including Georgia. That's why really this question has to be answered, and we have to find a solution in that. So this is the end of typical democratic rule. So that needs different approach, different strategy, and unfortunately it's a long-term strategy. It needs a long-term strategy, so that I cannot see any immediate solution to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. So first of all, thank you so much for the talk today and the
Thank you.
book. It was a great book.
Thank
I guess
you.
my question for you today is that while reading the book, we learn how Erdogan uses democracy to get elected at some point. And so my question for you is, what in your opinion, what are the real values of democracy in 2024?
Good question. In fact, he was not hiding this. I mean, in the very beginning, as you saw in the book, he declared that. I mean, he doesn't trust democracy. He didn't believe in democracy. And he was a kind of a leader who used democracy to destroy it. And he is still, I mean, he did what he promised. He destroyed democracy by using democracy. And there are many examples of it, unfortunately. The problem of the Western democracies now, I mean, they are giving platform to different approaches. But nowadays, Germany has been discussing the same problem. There's a party called AfD. They don't trust, they don't believe in democracy. Neo-Nazis, mostly radical right-wing kind of nationalists, and they're against kind of Western values, against foreigners. They want to stop the refugee flow, kick out all the refugees from Germany, etc. They are against, gay movements, etc., etc. And they are getting power year by year, and now they are very close to, to coming to power, I guess, in several states in Germany. So now there's a huge discussion in German public and the media that what should they do with a party who are very close to power, and apparently they would destroy German democracy. So my idea was, in Turkey, banning a party from political scenery would not be helpful. And there was a huge discussion about that in Turkey. Should the AKP have been banned from the politics in the very beginning? And we were opposing it at that time. We were saying that, hey, come on. I mean, you cannot ban a party in a democracy. If you ban it, they would go underground and could be more, came back in a more powerful manner, etc. And those theses were kind of true, but at the same time, in the end, they didn't ban AKP, and now the AKP banned all the other rival parties, especially the Kurdish party now they are working on. And the Constitutional Court was discussing about the banning of AKP, and they didn't. And now Erdoğan is, trying to shut down the Constitutional Court. So that's why we learned a lot from our old experiences. And now when I think about Germany, now I'm in favor of banning the parties against democracy. If they are, using undemocratic ways to come to power, and they have a kind of a militia to take over the power, etc., the democracy has the right to protect itself. So democratic resilience is very important in that sense.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's ask their questions. Actually, John, one of my students had a great question, probably a shy student. They said, has your opinion of Erdoğan changed while you were writing this book? I like that question very much. Yeah.
Okay, was that the last one?
Is this the last one? It looks like the faculty members, the professors, you don't want to ask any questions? Do you want to? Okay, but there will be one more question from Martin, and then that will be the last question.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Thank you, John.
Well, to be honest, not much, because I knew him. I mean, for the last 3 decades, we are together with him. We are living him. We are living with him. And I almost know every detail about his political background and history. And I met him several times. I traveled with him. So, to be honest, nothing surprising for me. I just want to share my thoughts and my knowledge about him. What has changed is, of course, I try to keep a distance with my subject in every book. And here also I try to do it. I try to hide my feelings. Even if when I was released from the prison, it was his birthday, I said, I feel lucky that I was not poisoned by hatred in jail, as he wants me to do. So that's the victory we have to, stick to. If we are poisoned by the hatred, then he could be the winner.
Yeah, you become like, thank you. Martin, you want to ask your question? Yeah. And that's going to be the last question.
Okay.
No pressure. Because I'm going into a different direction now, so I don't know, but I'll do it. I do it still. So I'm going back to the book, Can, and I want to point to 2 metaphors, if you will, that show up, narrative devices that you use in the book. One is you talk about Erdoğan, the soccer player, the football player. That I didn't know that he was a football player. So I thought that was interesting that parts of his career were made out of playing football. So doing one thing in order to achieve something else. And the other one is that several times the metaphor of climbing up a mountain shows up, and a little bit of a Sisyphus kind of, and then maybe a happy Sisyphus, a sad Sisyphus, I don't know. But someone who tries to get to power. Someone who, if I put on a psychoanalytic hat, I would say someone who tries to get an erection, but he doesn't really know what to do with it once it's there, right? So I'm wondering whether you could speak a little bit more to one, those narrative devices that you use there, those metaphors, the extent to which they are actually metaphors that you use in order to give us an impression of the character, and to what extent they are, I don't know, factual, true, I don't know, whether you think that he thinks about his soccer career in a similar kind of fashion, his climbing up a mountain in a similar kind of fashion. That's the first part of my question. And the second part is a much more simpler question, but that's connected to it. What do you think a person like Erdoğan with that kind of career, and that's where it's maybe similar to other dictators, others who rise to power, what do they, and then it's a difficult question to answer, but I still ask it, what do they want ultimately? What makes them tick and go?
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, of course, I mean, I try to use football as not only a kind of a metaphor that explains Erdoğan's approach to power or politics, but also it's a very popular thing among the autocrats. Like Berlusconi was a football fan as well. So football can help them to understand each other better, and that gave them a kind of a club feeling, and they are in the same club, and it makes it easier for them to approach to each other. And also, he was a very passionate football player, so he hates to lose. So you can understand his approach to life via football. That's why it was very useful device for us from the beginning. And Sisyphus, of course, was our mind during the research, and we discovered that, yeah, it's very similar. I mean, the big gods of his time was, pushing him away from the power, but he was so consistently and he was so passionately trying to get the peak of the mountain. And in the second volume, you will see him trying to push the others away from the peak of the mountain. So this would help us to understand the changing of his approach when he got to power. The second one is, of course, important, what they want. So we planned the cover of the book as two covers, and can give you the right answer from this book. And this is the Erdoğan's Western face that was shown to the Western world to convince them that he's not a dangerous Islamist, but a soft liberal. But the back of the book, you can see the real Erdoğan. So who wants to be the Sultan of the whole Islamic world. So those allegations, these two faces can explain what we have in our mind about his personality, and it's about his political career. I guess from the beginning he had a strategy, but I mean, in different decades he used different tactics to get to this final destination. And as he mentioned, he saw democracy as a train going to the last destination, and he used this train and he can jump off whenever he wants. But I guess in his mind, the final destination is as an Islamic, to be the Sultan and leader of the whole Islamic world. Even today, I guess he has the same idea in his mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
By the way, John came back sick from London, and then we woke him up several times today, so he needs to rest now. John, thank you so much. This has been wonderful for us. Now, everyone, because he doesn't see us, give him a shout out. Come on.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Kumru. It was a pleasure meeting you. I mean, the questions were great. Really, I questioned myself itself. So
it was wonderful.
It was amazing experience. Thank you so much for. Yeah, I will come and visit you all.
Yes, you will come. Yes, yeah. Yes, you will. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting me. All the best to you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye. Thank you.